At 58, Julia Roberts has nothing left to prove, yet she just revealed something no one ever expected. Behind the dazzling smile, the fairy tale romances, and the spotless Hollywood image lies a private history far more complicated, passionate, and human than the world ever imagined. After 4 decades of silence, Julia finally decided to tell the truth about the 6 men who left lasting marks on her life. Men who were not just co-stars, but forces of nature who collided with her in ways that shaped her forever. And the first name she revealed wasn't safe, wasn't expected, and certainly wasn't gentle. It was the most dangerous, magnetic, intoxicating man she ever encountered, one whose darkness matched the fire inside her. Because Julia's secret story begins with the one man no one could have predicted. Johnny Depp was the first name Julia Roberts revealed, and she didn't say it lightly. Johnny wasn't just another co-star or another Hollywood face. He was a force, a contradiction, a storm disguised as a man. When Julia first met him, she felt an instant pull, the kind that doesn't ask permission and doesn't care about consequences. Johnny had a darkness that glowed, a gentleness that cut deep, and an intensity that could swallow anyone who got too close. Julia described him as the most intoxicating person I ever knew. Around him, she felt both exposed and understood. Their conversations jumped from philosophy to childhood trauma, from dreams to self-destruction, from laughter to silence. Johnny had a way of looking at her like he could see every hidden bruise, every guarded memory. And instead of turning away, he wanted to dive deeper. But the same fire that pulled them together also threatened to burn them alive. Johnny lived on the edge. Every emotion was amplified. Joy, desire, pain, fear. Julia found herself drawn to the chaos, the mystery, the danger of a man who couldn't be controlled even by himself. Their relationship was passionate but unsustainable. It was the kind of connection that changes you, scars you, and shapes you, but never stays with you. Julia knew that if she stayed too long, she would lose herself, yet she never once regretted it. And after the storm that was Johnny Depp, Julia encountered a man who was his complete opposite. Denzel Washington entered Julia's life like a breath of clean air after a wildfire. Everything about him was grounded. His voice, his presence, his energy. Where Johnny was volatile, Denzel was calm. Where Johnny was unpredictable, Denzel was deliberate. And where Johnny's love felt like lightning, Denzel's felt like a steady flame. Julia described Denzel as the safest man I've ever been close to. Not safe in a boring way, but safe in a way that made her heart unclench. With him, she could rest. She could be soft without fearing she would be consumed. They connected during long conversations, quiet dinners, and nights spent talking about life rather than escaping it. Denzel was older, wiser, and deeply respectful. He treated intimacy like something sacred, not rushed, not careless, not loud. Julia said what struck her most was his kindness, the way he listened like every word mattered. There was passion, of course, but it was mature passion, built on trust, laughter, and emotional clarity. It was a relationship that healed her from the chaos she'd endured with others. For the first time, she felt seen without being overwhelmed. But despite the beauty of it, both Julia and Denzel understood something painful. Their worlds didn't align. Their careers, responsibilities, and personal paths didn't run parallel. They intersected beautifully for a moment. But only a moment. And then came Matthew McConaughey, who brought a different kind of fire into Julia's life. Raw, earthy, and irresistibly honest. Matthew McConaughey was the kind of man you didn't just meet. You felt From the first moment Julia worked with him, she sensed something different in him. He had that unmistakable Texas warmth, the charm that didn't need effort, and the confidence of a man who knew exactly who he was. Julia described Matthew as wild in the most human way. He wasn't reckless. He was free. And something about that freedom made Julia want to breathe deeper, laugh louder, and live more honestly. Their connection grew slowly, almost sneaking up on them during late-night rehearsals, shared meals, and stolen moments away from the noise of Hollywood. Matthew had a sincerity that cut through her defenses. He talked openly about fears, childhood memories, purpose, and love, and on quiet nights, he would play guitar for her, simple melodies that said more than words ever could. Their relationship was passionate but warm, like a summer night that wraps around you instead of burning. Julia felt understood, appreciated, and alive. There was desire, but there was also truth. Matthew didn't pretend, he didn't hide, he didn't perform. But Matthew was also a man constantly in motion, new films, new places, new transformations. And Julia was building her own empire. Their lives were moving too fast, too far apart to hold on to something so delicate. The love was real, but the timing wasn't. And when the whirlwind faded, Julia unexpectedly found lightness again in the unlikeliest place. Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson wasn't intense like Johnny, or grounded like Denzel, or fiery like Matthew. He was something entirely different, light, pure, effortless light. Julia met him during a period of exhaustion, pressure, and emotional burnout. Owen slipped into her life like sunshine through a half-open window, quiet, warm, and impossible to ignore. Julia described him as the person who made me laugh when I forgot how. Owen had a softness, a gentleness that made her feel safe in a completely new way. He didn't try to impress her or overwhelm her. He simply existed beside her. And somehow that was enough. Their connection was sweet, spontaneous, and deeply human. They would sneak away from set to talk, joke, and share little moments far from the spotlight. Owen had a talent for making everything feel simple: meals, conversations, even silence. There was attraction, of course, but the real bond came from the emotional space Owen created for her. He allowed her to be messy, tired, uncertain, to be a woman carrying the weight of fame without pretending it was easy. Their romance didn't last long, but it left a lasting imprint. Julia once said, "Owen was the light I didn't know I needed." But soon, her journey would take a sharp turn when she crossed paths with someone who challenged her mind as much as her heart, Leonardo DiCaprio. And nothing could have prepared her for the intensity of that connection. Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't just attractive, he was fascinating, brilliant, curious, sharp-witted, and full of restless energy. Julia was drawn to his mind first. Their chemistry began with long intellectual conversations, debates, and shared thoughts about art, fame, and the strange loneliness of being adored by millions. Julia said Leo had a gravity to him. He pulled you in without trying, and once you got close, you discovered layers no one else ever saw: vulnerability, fear, passion, depth. They spent one unforgettable night talking for hours, and before the sun came up, that emotional connection turned into something physical, intense, overwhelming, unforgettable. Leo loved the way he acted, with abandon, with total presence, with a hunger to feel everything as deeply as possible. Julia described their time together as a collision of two restless souls. But Leo was constantly evolving, chasing roles, chasing meaning, chasing something bigger than either of them. And Julia was already a global icon with responsibilities and expectations tightening around her like a cage. Their connection burned hot, fast, and bright, But it wasn't built for longevity. It was a beautiful explosion. And after Leo, only one man remained, the one Julia described as the most unexpectedly profound of them all. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was the final name on Julia's list, and the one that made her pause the longest. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was meaningful. Tom was a phenomenon. Disciplined, focused, electrifying, and disarmingly charismatic. Being around him felt like stepping into a high-voltage field. Julia said Tom had an energy that fills every room and a presence that makes you feel seen in a way that's almost unsettling. During late-night filming, quiet breaks, and long conversations between scenes, they formed a connection that surprised them both. It wasn't just attraction. It was understanding. A deep, piercing, emotional recognition. One night in New Orleans changed everything. They talked for hours about fame, fear, childhood wounds, dreams, identity, and somewhere in that conversation, an invisible line shifted when they finally kissed. Julia said it felt like two people who had been circling each other for years without knowing it. Their connection was intense but delicate, strong but complicated. It wasn't built to last forever, but it left a permanent mark. Julia once confessed, "Tom was the one who made me question what my heart was capable of." And that was the perfect end to her story. 6 men who didn't just share moments with her, but shaped who she became. In the end, Julia Roberts didn't reveal these 6 men to shock the world or rewrite her image. She revealed them because, at 58, she finally felt free to tell the truth. Each man represented a different season of her life. The danger she survived, the tenderness she needed, the passion she chased, the healing she found, the brilliance she admired, and the connection she never expected. They weren't scandals. They were chapters, raw, imperfect, unforgettable chapters that shaped the woman she became. Julia said she shared their names not out of regret, but gratitude. Because every love, every heartbreak, every mistake, and every moment of joy carved something into her soul. And now, for the first time, she's no longer hiding behind the Hollywood fairy tale. She's simply Julia, honest, unfiltered, and finally at peace with the story that was always hers.